In September 2025, as the West braced itself for the reimposition of tough United Nations sanctions on Iran, diplomatic circles buzzed with tension and uncertainty. The world watched closely, expecting Tehran to be further isolated on the global stage, its economy squeezed even tighter by international pressure. But in a move that caught nearly everyone off guard, Russia stunned the world by unveiling a sweeping new nuclear energy deal with Tehran. The agreement was not just a business transaction, it was a bold geopolitical statement, signaling a dramatic shift in alliances and power dynamics. The announcement, made just days before sanctions were set to snap back into place, was a calculated act of defiance. It sent a clear message. Moscow was ready to challenge the established order and rewrite the rules of engagement in the Middle East, regardless of Western objections. Instead of further isolating Iran, the West now found itself confronting a rapidly deepening alliance between two of its most formidable adversaries. The partnership promised to reshape not only Iran's nuclear future, but also the broader balance of power in the region. The deal, signed in Moscow with great fanfare and attended by top officials from both countries, outlined a decades-long partnership to overhaul and expand Iran's nuclear energy sector. It included technology transfers, joint research, and the construction of new nuclear facilities, an unprecedented level of cooperation. For Western leaders, this was more than just a diplomatic setback. It was a direct challenge to their authority and a blow to years of painstaking negotiations. The move threatened to undermine the entire framework of sanctions and non-proliferation efforts painstakingly built over the past decade. The immediate reaction from Washington and European capitals was one of outrage and disbelief. Officials scrambled to respond as the deal threatened to unravel the fragile consensus that had kept Iran's nuclear ambitions in check. This single act set the stage for a new, more complicated era of global tensions, one where Russia openly shields Iran from Western pressure, and the world must grapple with the unpredictable consequences of this bold new alliance. The Rosatom-Iran deal is more than business. It's a blueprint for a strategic energy alliance. Russia will help Iran build at least 8 new small modular nuclear reactors, supply the fuel, and manage spent fuel to address proliferation concerns. The partnership embeds Russian technology and expertise deep into Iran's energy sector, offering Tehran a path to energy independence despite looming sanctions. For Moscow, it's a commercial win and a geopolitical lever in the Middle East. Western critics warn the deal will boost Iran's nuclear know-how and complicate international monitoring. Even with safeguards, the West sees this as a dangerous gamble that could destabilize the region. Moscow and Tehran frame it as peaceful cooperation, but for many it's a high-stakes bet with global consequences. Europe's decision to reimpose UN sanctions was the result of years of mounting frustration over Iran's nuclear advances. After the US withdrew from the 2015 nuclear deal, Iran ramped up uranium enrichment and restricted international inspections. Over 60 IAEA reports documented Iran's breaches, including enrichment to near weapons grade and a massive stockpile of uranium. European trust evaporated as Iran stonewalled inspectors and failed to address secret nuclear sites. By August 2025, the E3 triggered the snapback mechanism, admitting diplomacy had failed, and restoring all pre-2015 UN sanctions. For Europe, it was a last resort to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions. The move marked the end of the original agreement and a return to maximum pressure. The snapback triggered a dramatic showdown at the UN Security Council. Russia and China tried to block sanctions, calling the move illegal and urging more time for diplomacy. Their resolution for a 6-month delay failed, exposing deep divisions among world powers. Western nations insisted Iran's violations left no alternative, while Moscow and Beijing accused them of reckless escalation. The defeat of the Russia-China resolution cleared the way for sanctions to return at midnight, September 27. The diplomatic consensus on Iran was shattered. The JCPOA era was over, replaced by renewed confrontation and economic warfare. The world now faced a fractured Security Council and a new phase of rivalry over Iran's future. The Russia-Iran deal and renewed sanctions have split the world into rival camps. Western leaders see the deal as reckless, arguing it enables Iran's nuclear ambitions and undermines non-proliferation. They point to Iran's history of secrecy and recent enrichment as proof of dangerous intent. Russia and Iran counter that their cooperation is legal, peaceful, and includes safeguards like spent fuel return. Moscow accuses the West of double standards and using sanctions for regime change. Iran insists its program is peaceful, blaming Western hostility for its actions and citing a religious ban on nuclear weapons. For Tehran, the deal is about self-sufficiency and resisting Western pressure. The nuclear standoff unfolds amid rising military tensions in the Middle East. Across the region, armies mobilize and airspace bristles with the threat of conflict, as governments brace for the unknown. The world watches anxiously, aware that any misstep could ignite a much larger crisis. The June 2025 war saw US and Israeli strikes on Iran's nuclear sites, a dramatic escalation that sent shockwaves through global capitals. In response, Tehran restricted IAEA access, cutting off vital international oversight and fueling global anxiety about what might come next. The sudden lack of monitoring created a dangerous blind spot, leaving the world uncertain about Iran's nuclear intentions. European leaders, alarmed by the growing instability, scrambled to coordinate a unified response, pushing Europe to act with urgency. The attacks hardened positions on all sides. Iran swiftly ruled out talks with the US, accusing Washington and Tel Aviv of aggression, while American and Israeli leaders defended their actions as necessary to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran. The diplomatic gulf widened, making compromise seem impossible. The cycle of escalation deepened Iran's ties with Russia, now seen as a vital security partner. Moscow, eager to expand its influence, offered military and diplomatic support, further complicating the regional balance of power. The shadow of conflict looms large over daily life. Fears grow that renewed sanctions and a defiant Iran could spark another, even more devastating war. One that might draw in neighboring countries and destabilize the entire region. Diplomacy is at a standstill, with negotiations frozen and trust at an all-time low. The risk of miscalculation is higher than ever, as leaders struggle to find a way forward. The region teeters on the edge of a wider confrontation, its future uncertain, as the world holds its breath and hopes for a breakthrough before it's too late. The snapback of UN sanctions delivers a heavy blow to Iran's economy and global standing. The measures freeze assets, block financial transactions, and restore a strict arms embargo, cutting Iran off from key markets. Sanctions also target Iran's missile program, challenging its defense strategy. The Iranian public faces rising prices and fewer opportunities, but the regime has survived decades of pressure before. Russia's New Deal offers Tehran a potential lifeline, while China and others refuse to enforce the sanctions. The fractured international response creates a two-tiered system, limiting the sanctions' impact. Instead of isolating Iran, the West may be driving it deeper into Russia and China's orbit. The sanctions hurt, but they may not deliver the decisive blow the West hopes for. The Russia-Iran deal and renewed sanctions have redrawn the global map, splitting the world into rival blocs. The lines between East and West are now sharper than ever, with alliances hardening and old partnerships being tested. As countries choose sides, the world order is shifting in real time, creating new uncertainties and risks that reach far beyond the Middle East. The UN Security Council is paralyzed, unable to broker compromise or even basic dialogue. With major powers at odds, the risk of military escalation is dangerously high, and the usual mechanisms for de-escalation are breaking down. Tensions simmer on multiple fronts, and the world watches anxiously for any sign of miscalculation. Iran, squeezed by sanctions and emboldened by Russian support, could accelerate its nuclear program or lash out through regional proxies. The possibility of a nuclear-armed Iran is now a central concern for its neighbors and the wider world. Meanwhile, proxy groups across the region are on alert, ready to act if tensions boil over, raising the specter of a wider conflict. Diplomatic channels are nearly closed, with backdoor negotiations rare and official talks stalled. This isolation increases the risk that a small incident, an accidental clash or a misunderstood signal, could spiral into a much larger war. The world is left hoping that cooler heads will prevail, but the margin for error is shrinking. Some hope sanctions and military threats might force Iran back to talks, but any future deal will demand tougher terms from both sides. The stakes are higher than ever, and the path to compromise is narrow. Public pressure is mounting, both in Iran and abroad, as ordinary people bear the brunt of economic hardship and uncertainty. The Russia-Iran partnership ensures Tehran won't be isolated, fundamentally shifting the balance of power in the Middle East. This new alliance gives Iran leverage and resources, while Russia gains a strategic foothold in the region. Together they challenge the influence of the West and reshape the dynamics of regional politics. The world now waits to see whether leaders will choose confrontation or find a narrow path back to stability. The choices made in the coming weeks and months will determine whether the region descends into chaos or steps back from the brink. The stakes could not be higher for millions of people. The next moves in Washington, Moscow, and Tehran will shape the region's fate for years to come. As the world holds its breath, the decisions of a few leaders could set the course for peace, or for a new era of conflict and uncertainty.